Hello, 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 everyone. Go ahead and take your seats. Hi, how is everyone doing today? Y'all good out there? There's a lot of y'all out there, so I want to make sure y'all are good. Thank you so much for your patience today. I'm excited that I get to be here as your MC. Thank you. For those of you who may not know me, I am TraeAnna Holiday, the Communications Director for Washington State's Office of Equity. Happy to serve the state and all Washingtonians in my role, and we're so grateful to have all of you here joining us today. And so we've gone through some amazing growth, and I'm excited because we get to start off with sharing something with all of you who may not be already subscribed to one of our communications efforts that we call the Daily Flow. Now, for those of you who know about Gov Delivery, do I got some Gov Delivery knowers out there? Okay, all right. For those of you who know, there is a way for us to be building our communication so that we can connect more and more with all of you. And so I encourage you to go on over there and make sure you subscribe to the Office of Equity's Daily Flow, because Monday through Friday, every work day, not on the holidays, y'all, but every work day, we provide an inspirational message based on oftentimes a topical theme of the month. So I am going to indulge you in today's Daily Flow. Is that all right? All right. So in the spirit of Filipino American History Month, we would like to give you, there we go. Trying to make sure it's right for y'all. We would like to share this quote with you by Uncle Bob Santos. Do I got some Uncle Bob Santos fans out there? Local hero, for sure. When I look back on my career, we've had a lot of fun because every day you have to generate enthusiasm, not only for your staff, but for your community, young people, old people, in generating resources for programs to benefit the old folks or the immigrants or families. So that's always been fun, but it's been a battle. Let's give it up for Uncle Bob Santos, y'all. Well, again, I am excited because I get to bring up our amazing and phenomenal director, Miss Megan Matthews. Give it up for her, y'all.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be with you all, and I'm so glad that you're able to make it here today. We did a convening last year, and so this is the second one in a different spirit, but it's just so beautiful to come together sometimes because we're still pretty remote, and I think the connections are important. So my name is Megan Matthews. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the director for Washington State's Office of Equity. So I'm gonna be a little, first, Phil, is this loud enough? Okay, good. He was like, talk loud, I said, I don't know if I need the mic, but he said, do it anyway, so I'm doing that. Trying to be part of the team here. And the other thing is, I talk really fast, naturally, so I'm gonna really try to slow it down so you all can hear what I actually have to say. Thank you, Trey. That's a work in progress. So I wanted to start by reading our RCW, our statute. Why are we here? What is the Office of Equity's purpose? The purpose of the Office of Equity, this is RCW 43.006D.020. The Washington State Office of Equity is established within the Office of the Governor for the purpose of promoting access to equitable opportunities and resources that reduce disparities and improve outcomes statewide across state government. We envision everyone in Washington having full access to the opportunities and resources they need to flourish and achieve their full potential. And I read this because when we think about the work that Washington state government, all of us and our communities are here to do, it's about promoting access. And when we talk about that, it's going to require systems change. And why are we talking about systems change? It's because through the policies, processes, activities that we do, we either advance equity or perpetuate oppression. We either make things easier for people to navigate, or we make it harder for them. We benefit some people and we burden others. And so it's really important for me and to me that when we are doing our work, we're doing it with intention. We're doing it with trying to actualize systemic equity and justice by utilizing data, who is being impacted by our actions, thinking beforehand, trying to be proactive, and that's important because we are often reactive. Being proactive about which communities may experience or be burdened by what we're doing, and how can we mitigate that in advance? How are we working with communities to devise the solutions that they need? Because they're the experts. And so I wanted to share that with you to kind of center the purpose of today and the purpose of the work. And so when you're out here hearing me talk about who's being impacted, what does the data show, who's invited to the table, how are you going to mitigate? I'm going to keep saying it. You're getting on my nerves, Megan, with this. You're getting on my nerves. But it's important, right? We have to be thinking about that, because if we're not being intentional, we could be part of the problem, and I know none of us wants that. Today, if you speak to many in our communities, even though the data shows that I guess our economy is booming, did you know that? I'm telling you, our economy is booming. It's incredible. And I heard some folks laugh. Why are we laughing? Well, because if you talk to people, they don't feel that anything's booming. It feels worse. In fact, for many people, it's worse than it was before the Great Recession. 2008. Can you believe that? And so it's almost insulting for us to talk about the ways that we're doing really well when people aren't experiencing that. And that is why we're here. We the people. The theme of this year's convening is We the People. We need to transition to becoming a government that does things with people instead of to people, so that we can finally be a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. This work is a team effort, so something that makes me feel really awkward is when people say, Megan, tell us how we're solving equity. Tell us how we're doing it. And I'm like, who me? So I'm a member of a team, and I'm playing my role. My role is that of director, but I could not do anything if I didn't have amazing team members. And I'm telling you, I am feeling the blessing, because last year there was fewer of us, and you probably couldn't even catch me last year. I was vroom, 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 vroom. And this year I'm like smiling and just sitting here, and right, because you have a team. It takes all of us, and it's not only the Office of Equity. I think we have to get outside of this thinking that in our agencies we hire equity director, equity manager, equity team, and we're like, okay, good, our work's done. Do equity for our agency, right? It's impossible. It's impossible. We really need each and every one of you. I need each and every one of you helping us, committing to something, right? I don't know what your thing is, but equity is everyone's responsibility. And I feel really lucky because our office has been so supported. We've been through a lot this past year, early this year. We've been through a lot, and I feel like we're in a position where we can be successful, where we can meet our mandate, what we're directed to do, because we have all of you. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to all my colleagues, community members, and all those who helped us with hiring, with knowledge, right? Access, a part of access is the knowledge, right? Getting us funding, sponsoring this event. Yes, thank you. Thank you so very much. We can't do this alone. We can't do this alone. So if you've been thinking about how can I get involved, how can I be part of the solution, let's move away from continue learning, but do something. Just do something small, right? And part of it is we get so overwhelmed because the system, when we think about systems, it's massive. We're like, well, I only do my little part. How do I affect the whole system? Well, if you do your little part, you are affecting the system, right? Because the systems are created, implemented, and maintained by us. So through your everyday actions, you can be helping to change, nudge the system. That's all you have to do. That's it. And so I encourage you throughout this convening to be thinking about, what can I do? We're actually going to challenge you with that, about that later. So thank you to everyone who's been supporting us. Thank you for all our amazing team members. And I understand that for me, just to share kind of what's coming next year, like, okay, Megan, like, let's talk about what's the future, right? Let's talk about what your plans are. And I think for the Office of Equity, I'm realizing that one of the main roles that we will be able to support Washington State, which is our mandate, we're supposed to support systems change and support agencies, is by bringing people together. We get so caught up in our everyday work that we sometimes don't give ourselves the opportunity and the time and space to collaborate within our agencies, with other agencies, especially those agencies who have impact in the work that we're doing. And so next year I look forward to helping us come together around the tough and complex issues of the 21st century, right? We have to tackle housing. We have to tackle economic inequity. We have to tackle some of these problems that have been food insecurity, right? There are some things that we have been putting a lot of money in, doing a lot of hiring in, but we're not experiencing the impact of some of those things. And that's one way that I think that we can help be the change and work with you all, because you're a part of the team as well. We all have roles to play, right? So we can't do it by ourselves, and I need your expertise. People are like, maybe what do we do? And I'm like, I don't know, you tell me. I don't have the answers, but I'm gonna put all my money on this idea that together we can figure it out, and that it won't be perfect, won't be easy, we're gonna get on each other's nerves, because that's what we do. Just so you know, whenever there's more than one person, we're probably gonna get on each other's nerves, we're probably gonna argue, right? But part of that is, that's life, and that's okay. We have to stop shying away from conflict, because anytime you have a difference of opinion, that's basically conflict. And all we need to do is put our thoughts together, and together we can do it. So I'm really excited for some of the work that we're going to be doing. I'm excited for the ways that we're going to be able to support state agencies. I'm very, very excited for all of you to be here. We've got a great couple of days planned for you. We're going to do more. Next, I don't know if I should put this pressure on us, but I'm going to say it, so. Here's my wish. We'll just put it out there like that. My wish is that we do at least 2 of these a year, and we're going to move across Washington State. Why? Well, because, right? We need to be in community as well, and we want to meet other state team workers, state colleagues across the state. And it isn't equitable to make people travel all the time to Olympia or to Tacoma or to Seattle, which are the big places. So we want to move this convening around, still offer virtual options so more people can participate, but we want to do more. And I know our amazing team members are going to have workshops planned for you at this convening tomorrow, but more, because in order for us all to gain in our skill and increase our skill in this work, we have to support you all with the questions, the weird things that come up, right? We can provide the standards and the guidelines, But we're all messy. People are messy. Nobody fits into these little boxes. And so we have to stop acting like we do and tailor solutions for the different communities, for the different individuals, for the different agencies, right? We have small agencies of maybe 2 people, and then we've got agencies like DSH that's 18,000 people. We cannot have a one-size approach and say, well, how come you're not meeting it, right? Well, the small agency, how come you're not putting $10,000 to, or hiring 15 people to do this work? And they're like, are you kidding me? Right? So it's not equitable to expect everyone to have the same and to do the same, but we can tailor approaches so that everyone can be successful. Because when you're successful, we're successful. We can't be successful without you. In order for the Office of Equity to be successful in supporting systems change, you all have to be doing systems change, right? So I just also want to say that we rise and fall together, that our communities don't look and say, oh my gosh, do you know that Department of Health is doing so amazing, they're great, they're doing da-da-da-da-da, but that Office of Equity, they're terrible. No, they don't care, they say the state sucks, right? Right? So no one's kind of picking apart our government. Our government is either successful or it's not, in the eyes of our communities and the people who are being impacted by our decisions. So we need each other to be successful. So when we're doing our work, the work isn't about saying, ooh, we got you, neener. The point is to say, how can we support you? How can we better shift and allocate our limited resources, because we got 25 people in our office now. I'm so excited about that. But that's not enough to really help each individual agency, right? And so we have to understand where the biggest need is so that we can provide the support to support systems change across Washington state. So interestingly enough, I didn't really have a wrote out speech, and I wasn't sure what I was going to say. And I was like, how can I talk for 15 minutes? But I only got 1 minute left on the timer, so I think I did a good job. And I don't see anybody falling asleep. I don't think I hear no snoring or nothing, so I did good enough to not put y'all to sleep early in the morning. So I'm excited for you to be here. I'm excited to continue this work and this journey together. I look forward to you, to the solutions, to helping us devise the solutions. And we look forward to doing this more often too. So thank you. Equity and justice for all.
That's what I'm talking about. Yay. You. All right, y'all. Let's give it up one more time for Megan Matthews, our director. So to my crew back there, this one on the left is the one I'm doing now. The next one is the next one. Gail, thank you. All right. I want to make sure I'm in the right order, y'all. And I'm excited because another one of our team members, Mr. Isak Sicha Brain, is coming up to give us a warm welcome with his welcome song. Let's welcome Isak Sicha.
All right, make sure, okay. Are we on? Are we on? Can you hear me? All right, yeah. It does sound different up here, doesn't it? And I'm so happy to be here, and I'm looking for my time. But you know what? I guess they didn't give me any, so no, I'm just teasing. See, that's the problem when you give a crow a microphone. You know, we can talk till those mountains are back into the beach. So that's the way it goes. But it is my honor today to stand in front of you all. My name, Babush Isaksuche. It means a good young fella. I'm not good, and I'm not young anymore, but I carry that spirit with me. And first of all, I want to acknowledge our director, Megan. That's a director I am honored to follow, so thank you. So, I've already told you who I am. Babush Isakshche. I am Isakshche. Be Abzalogat. I am Abzalogat. Does anybody know where the Abzalogat people are from? What if I said it in English and said the Crow people? Crow, from southeast Montana. I'm a long ways from home, aren't I? So how am I standing here today offering a welcome song? Well, the way I've learned it, as an uninvited guest here in Coast Salish territory, although I am a citizen of a federally recognized tribe, this is not my waters. This is not my mountain. And so as I've learned today, I'm going to sing you an entry song. I've decided as I was driving, so thank you, Trey, for doing all the work, but I think I'm going to do an entry song with us today. What I like to remind folks of is, although I'm not from here, I'm from Montana, these shipyards are where my great-grandfather, Carl Brain, built ships during the war. My grandma, Sis Brain, was a doctor here. My grandpa, Alfred, was over here at the hospital. So although we've come a long ways from Montana to this Coast Salish territory, we belong here too. And so I want to acknowledge the fact that we are on occupied territory. I'm not going to offer a land acknowledgement because I feel like they are disingenuous. Because we say them, and then what? Let's think about that. We'll acknowledge, and then what? How much land has the state giving back to tribes? How much has our organizations given back to tribes, especially when all of our buildings are on occupied territory? I'm not getting after anyone today. I just want to call that history out so that we all look it in the face, just like our director Matthew said. It's hard, isn't it? Sometimes we want to be ashamed. That's okay. That's okay. Let's own that too. So what I'm going to sing to you today is a song that I earned from my old elder. His name was Julian Argel. Some of you might have remembered Julian. He was the first superintendent here at Chief Leschi School, the first principal. He was a Simpson and a Hyde, and he passed away in 2012. But he is the one who taught me all of this stuff that I'm sharing with you today. What he taught me is when tribes would come into another tribe's territory, they would come out in their canoes, never the boats, right? Always a canoe. Come out, land in front, sing a song. Here's our intentions to come ashore. They could have been for ill, or they could have been for good. The tribe on the beach would respond. It'd be a call and response in essence. And so this song is more of a welcome or an entry song. What we're going to do is you're going to sing with me too. Oh, are you all ready? Yeah? So what I'm going to do is we're going to honor some traditional ways, all right? I ask that you put your phones down, your cameras down, turn it off, be here, yeah? You're here with us today. You made time to come all of this way. And for those of you that are on the screen, thank you for being here as well. But I want to honor those who have shown up. I'm not singing this song for YouTube or Threads or X or TikTok or Snap or FaceCrack or LinkedIn or all of those things. Yeah, I said FaceCrack. You all know. See, as soon as I said it, you're like, I got to check my status. And the rest are watching your TikToks. No, I'm teasing. I don't have any social media. I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not singing it for the internet. I don't want to be recorded. I prefer to sing with you in community. And then when we're done, that's for you to have. Does that make sense? Okay. Oh, thank you.
All right, y'all. Let's give it up for our tribal liaison, Isakshche Brain. Thank you so much. Well, we are excited because this work really started with our governor and our legislators, as Megan called it out and read the RCW for you all, that brought our office into existence. And although the governor, Jay Inslee, could not be here with us today, we are excited that he was able to record a special message for all of y'all and for us to make sure we understand his continued commitment to equity and our work. Take a look.
Hi, Governor Jay Inslee here. Though I couldn't join you today, I am excited to reaffirm our commitment to a pro-equity, anti-racist Washington. In April 2020, our legislature, with my help, created the Washington State Office of Equity. In that December, I directed implementation of the pro-equity, anti-racism playbook. We've held a summit to work on these issues, and we're making progress. But we're not done. We're opening doors to people who've been left out in the past: race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, income, disabilities. These must not remain barriers, as we know they have been in the past. You have a South African saying called Ubuntu, and I am because we are. And I take that to mean our destinies are linked, and we need to walk forward together. I've created this office for you to lead that walk, because we won't move forward by accident. Just and equitable actions and decisions will take us forward, and you're going to help us live those values. So I challenge us all in our state to live up to these values. Washingtonians are counting on you. So thank you and good luck.
Let's give it up for Governor Jay Inslee, y'all. We also wouldn't be here without the incredible sponsorship of all of our sponsors, and I am excited that they are all here and present and found value in what we are doing today. You can see all of them there, but really we just want to send a huge thank you to everyone who donated, and we are so appreciative of all of your efforts out there to understand the importance of our work, centralizing it in your own agencies and offices, and ensuring that together we are achieving equitable approaches, strategies, processes, and centering Washingtonians in everything we do. Let's give a huge shout out to all of our amazing sponsors, y'all. Thank you, sponsors. Now, I have the pleasure of going through some really interesting points about our annual report. This is exciting for us because, together as a team, we started figuring out that we need to do some things to make sure that we provide information and insight about where we are when it comes to equity. And many understand, and Megan put it out here, so our beginnings really started with that establishment of the RCW code. One thing they realized was that the population was changing. The demographics were becoming more diverse, and yet inequities were continuing. This is something that we really had to, I think, take to heart. When we brought on more staff and began to grow, every one of us understands the importance of why we exist, which is a huge part that really governs our moves and our actions, and in particular governs our consultation, which I'll talk more about later. Part of what we understand around the work that we're doing, we can move it forward, what I can see on the screen. Thanks. So I want to share with you that we have some really specific measures that we're taking internally around what our vision and our mission is. So quickly, I'll share with you. Our vision is that everyone in Washington has full access to the opportunities, power, and resources they need to flourish and achieve their full potential. And our mission is to promote equitable access to opportunities, power, and resources across government that reduce disparities and improve outcomes statewide. Now, that's saying a lot, but ultimately, it encourages all of us as staff to understand how we're centralizing those things, our mission and our vision, in everything that we do. Essentially, what I always love to say is we have two headlights that are governing the car that we're driving on this road to equity. It's not one destination. It's a continuous journey of learning that we have to go through in order to understand where we are when it comes to making sure that our families are understanding that their lives are improving. Are we doing that? Ultimately, we are the Washingtonians that we're looking to serve. Am I right? Am I right? What does it mean for us to be understanding that everything we do matters if we just reflect on the fact that we are also citizens of this great state, and we're looking to make sure that we're on this road and on this journey to making everyone's lives better? That means improving all of the access that we have opportunity to, and that means ensuring that we're opening up the doors that have been closed, particularly to communities of the global majority. And you may hear me say this term throughout the day, global majority. What does global majority mean? Think about it. It really is centering on those who oftentimes they call disparity communities, those who have experienced the impacts of racial oppression the most. We're talking about communities that reflect the globe, that are right here in Washington State, and that are oftentimes not centered in the work that we're doing. So how can we as an office be very specific about how we center them in our approaches? That's something that governs us. Those two headlights of the car, are their material conditions rising? Do they feel the effects of change? And throughout state government, because we're here to serve government, are agencies changing? The way they do business, the way they communicate with their clients and Washingtonians that they serve, the way that they connect with each other internally, which is oftentimes, and I promise y'all this, it's reflected in how people experience those services. It's reflected in how people experience the resources that you're looking to give as state government employees. So it's on all of us. One of the reasons why we said we need to bring community and government together is because, to be honest, so many of the solutions we seek are already happening in communities. They have the answers. We have to learn. I'm excited because for me, I come from a community background. And so when I joined this office, I was reminding our director then and our director now the importance of us centering ourselves in how communities experience government. Megan said it earlier. Nobody's picking apart which agency is bad or which, employee is bad. It's a reflection on the entire state government, on the enterprise. It's a full reflection of that. And that's something that we all have to be mindful of as we think about all of these approaches that we're taking. All right, I have the clicker. Thank you. So I want to share with you the reason for these values. And you heard Governor Inslee say one of our values that we're going to get to at the end here. One is access. We've been talking about access. Barrier-free environments so everyone can participate. Belonging. The right to participate in all aspects of society with acceptance, attention, and support from members of the society while providing the same to others. You've heard us talk about dignity. Dignity is honoring the sacred nature of individual personhood. And of course, equity. There's a long understanding of what equity means. We understand it as acknowledging systemic inequalities by developing and strengthening, supporting policies, and procedures that distribute and prioritize resources to people in social identity groups who have been historically and currently marginalized, ensuring everyone has access to the same opportunities, power, and resources so their outcomes are achieved at an equitable rate. Justice, treating people fairly to make right, as Cornel West said, what love looks like in public. Look that up. It's amazing. And love, a selfless and giving act of the will. We seek to outgive and to outserve the other. In communities, some may say love is giving, seeking nothing in return. That's saying a lot. How many of you actually understand love that way? Because sometimes people are like, I love you, you better love me. Right? And Ubuntu, I am because we are. We are so interconnected. And understanding that allows us to move in that layer of interconnectedness that brings us together even more. So when we think about our year at a glance, y'all, we're excited because we have some things that we achieved this year that are major for us. And I'm excited because we'll be sharing a little bit more of this later on in the program. Our community compensation is one. We actually established the guidelines for community compensation, and that was a lot of hard work. Let's give it up for that, y'all, for real. You see that there. Senate Substitute Bill 5793 passed, and we will be able to share with y'all some of the results of that. Last year, as Megan said, we did hold the Governor's First Equity Summit. This annual convening is now in the spirit of that summit. And that was a huge feat for such a small team. It was my first day on the job, and I walked into this room. It was full of people, and it was snowing outside. There was a lot going on, but people showed up here and online to support the office and what we were doing. And we also were able to launch our PEAR plan and playbook, which we have copies of today. For those of you who may not have gotten it or been able to see it on our website, you can definitely go there to check it out, but there's also copies here for you today. This is something that establishes our pro-equity, anti-racism approach that we're bringing across state government. And we were able to support a bunch of legislative measures to make sure that equity was embedded in legislation and moving forward. As we think about, as we grow, the exciting part is that we now are a part of a central services budgetary model. And what this means is essentially our work is funded through other state agencies across the enterprise. So we are grateful that folks have stepped up to the plate to understand the need for our work. So thank you to all of the folks that made that happen, because that allows us to have recurring budget resources to continue our work and build our team. As we think about some of the ways that we are laying the foundation, we have to make sure that we work together with state agencies so that they can develop their plans to embed pro-equity and anti-racism approaches into their work. So we began to lay the foundation, and this year is essential in that as we launched our survey to make sure we understand where agencies are. And this wasn't, Megan said, it wasn't a nya, right? We weren't waving our finger at you. This was an opportunity for us to establish a baseline this year. We specifically just wanted to know who out there across 192 agencies have developed their PEAR team. This is where they're bringing agency and community together to make sure they have a strong team that's going to really govern how that agency is going to embed PEAR. We also asked about conducting your equity impact assessment. This is something that's the next layer for us to just know, have you gotten there? If not, okay, good. We'll understand what we can do to help get you there. This is really about agency awareness and everyone understanding where they are. Those impact assessments also help us because then we get to identify the areas where we can help you. And your PEAR strategic action plans. These are the things that you're going to establish that then tell you strategically how you're going to do the PEAR work. So we're grateful that this year, just as the baseline, basically we just wanted to know who out there had established PEAR teams, right? So here it is, establishing a PEAR team. Hi. Look, one of our distinguished elders in the building. I love to be able to recognize them when they come in. Hi, Miss Dawn. Establishing a strong PEAR team. This is a fundamental part of the work. We understand that in agencies and in state government, we may have an idea about the work that we're doing, but if we don't bring community into that idea, unfortunately, sometimes we miss the mark, y'all. So ultimately, we have said, no, it is important in order for you to say that you have a full PEAR team, that you actually have incorporated community members into your work in a way that is integral in how all of the employees in that agency understand the work. And community has a reason to be there because they are who we're serving. So when we're listening to them, when we're embedding what they need, we're actually making sure that our solutions that we're crafting are co-created with community. Transformation and accountability. This is important here because we are encouraging all of you to be flexible. When we talk about accountability, this is an establishment that we have to create. A lot of community members do not feel as though we are accountable to the things we say we're going to do. So how do we change that? How intentional can we be to make sure that community members are feeling that change? That's what we're here to do. Be transparent. This helps build that accountability. We don't have to do things in the shadows. We already know about public disclosure requests. Everything we do is pretty public, so we might as well make it public from the gate, right? Ultimately, the folks in community are like, yo, if I can connect to the work, maybe then I can have a better understanding of how what you're doing is impacting me positively. I get to know you more. Be creative in your approaches. I love to always say be bold, which I'll say later in the show, but I'm going to say it again. Be bold, right? Because we do have to think about how we're doing this differently, and that means creating and crafting new ways of doing business. And be trustworthy, y'all. Let's do what we say we're going to do. If we cannot do it, let's not say it. Sometimes they say under promise and over deliver, right? A part of it is let's make sure that we can do what we say we're going to do. Ultimately, what's next for agencies is, again, we are getting agencies to get their PEAR teams established. This is important because without it, it's hard for you to do the other pieces that we're asking with that equity impact assessment and your strategic action plan. It starts with your PEAR teams. But we have some amazing PEAR consultants and shared power consultants who are going to help the agencies who need it, because we understand some agencies are small. What does it look like for you to establish a PEAR team when you only have a few folks in the agency? And some are really large. And so then who is designating that work, right? Who's leading that effort? We're going to be connecting with y'all to make sure that we help you do these things so that you can really the next year be reporting on other outcomes in terms of your PEAR teams, your equity impact assessment, and your strategic action plan. What's next for the Office of Equity? Well, we're excited because staff is next. We are still growing. As Megan said, we have 25 now. We are growing. Yes, you can give it up for that. Yes, excited. It's so good to see our staff here. What's up, staff? Wave your hands. We got some of them right here. We got some of them back there. There we go. Thank y'all. Also, as I just mentioned, our budget is super important. That central services budget model, that's something that we are excited about because we know our work is now funded in a way that it just doesn't go away with one administration. So we're excited for that. Our operations, we are developing and building our operations so that we can support all of these staff members to do their work. And also the culture that we're creating within our office is important because we can't explain or try to help and guide y'all through something we're not doing ourselves, right? We have to model it. We have to model it. So our culture is important, and we're excited that we actually have someone who's that's their job. Let's make sure the culture is right. Let's make sure our communications are right and our team dynamics are correct. Our management, we are at promoting folks and growing folks into directors. I just became a director this year. Woo, right? So we're getting the right people in place to manage our team properly, and our relationships and partnerships are key. I want to give a huge shout out to our consultants, our shared power consultants, and our PEAR equity consultants. Y'all are phenomenal, and they're paving the way to showcase what it means to be intentional to build relationships in our community. And I'm excited because we gave you a little bit here, but we got more from the rest of our staff. Take a look at how we wanted to share some of this annual report findings with all of you.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Office of Equity's annual report. I'm TraeAnna, or Trae Holiday, the office's communications director, and I'm happy I get to narrate and guide you through our work over the last year. We wanted to share this report in a way that personalizes it, so you get to see some of the great people from our office. You get to feel our passion for this work through our voice, inflection, tone, and facial expressions. Not to mention our own personal style, which is another part of how we experience one another, right? Oh, whoa, that was fun. Now I have the pleasure of sending it over to our director, Megan Matthews. Some of you may know her as she's been bringing her brilliance to state government as an employee for over 15 years. Megan, tell them more about our work.
Thanks, Trae. Hi, I'm Megan Matthews, and as Trae said, I've been working for Washington state government for quite some time now. Over the years, I have learned a lot about the ways we do business, and I'm grateful I now get to serve as the director of this office. Our office was created to serve all Washingtonians, with transformational change as our guiding light, removing barriers so people can experience autonomy, choice over their lives. As we close the fiscal year in June 2023, we shifted to building our internal capacity and laying a strong internal foundation. We prioritize hiring more employees and establishing our budget strategy. Our goal is to be as impactful as possible with the funds, positions, and resources we have. I am thankful for the support our office continues to receive. Colleagues around the state have helped us build position descriptions, recruit excellent candidates, host interview panels, tackle onboarding, share institutional knowledge, and support us through change. Because of you, I feel quite certain we can meet our mandate and advance systems change to achieve equity and justice for every single person in Washington. Our dedicated and passionate team continues to work for Washingtonians. While we still have much work to do, we are ready to deepen this vision and further this life-changing work. How was that, Trae?
That was perfect, Megan. Thanks for laying the foundation for everyone. In addition to Megan's gratitude, our entire staff would like to say thank you to everyone who has helped us on this journey. Establishing an ecosystem of pro-equity and anti-racism takes all of us. So much of what we need to do involves everyone being engaged as systems change makers, not just our staff. So truly, we thank you for your dedication and bold acts as we work together to advance PEAR and belonging. Here are some of the ways we were able to do just that. We established the guidelines on community compensation. We held the Governor's Equity Summit to advance equity in education, contracting, state employment, and public services. And we published the PEAR Plan and Playbook. Woo! It was getting crowded in here. Not only that, but we also appeared in several pieces of legislation, working with agencies on digital equity and social equity in cannabis, the Community Reinvestment Plan, equity in recruiting and hiring, and equity in early learning. We also worked on our internal structure. Jenny Castanetto, our Senior Administrative Assistant, can tell you more about that. Right, Jenny?
You got it, Trey. At the beginning of the fiscal year, our office had 5 staff. At the end of the fiscal year, our office had 12. We currently have resources to fill a total of 36 positions. Wow, that would really help us out. To support hiring and retention, we accomplished 4 significant goals. We worked with the Office of Financial Management Human Resources team to build our recruiting and hiring process. We implemented Spark Hire, a virtual interviewing platform, as an innovative solution to swiftly recruit, interview, and select candidates while minimizing bias. We worked with staff, OFM, and subject matter experts to create our organizational chart, building capacity in areas that need the greatest support. We created a culture and belonging administrator position to support our retention as they design and implement strategies that establish a welcoming team environment and culture. When I think back, we've done a lot to move our work forward. Well, we also got our advisory board up and running. Omar, share what you and Angela have been up to.
We've been busy, that's for sure, Jenny. Hey everyone, my name is Omar Santana Gomez, one of the program managers for our advisory board. Upon being hired, my peer and fellow program manager, Angela Vera Webster, and I immediately began working on a strategy to build out what our board would look like. No business as usual here. We engage with communities throughout the state to recruit board members with a wide range of lived experiences. We're excited for the opportunity to work alongside community members and open the door to be led by their collective experiences. We still have work to do, but we are well on our way to modeling how agencies can build meaningful relationships with the communities they serve.
Great work, Omar and Angela. You know, centering voices is very important to our work. This year, we continued our Real Talk series and learned from the experiences of other state employees. This right here is a space where we get to have those tough conversations and uplift the stories people share to help us take action toward advancing equity. Without discussion about difficult topics, we can really become complacent and neutral to the reality of racism and other forms of oppression. Some of the themes we covered were immigration, disability justice, tribal sovereignty, veterans left behind, woman storytellers, improving Washington's correctional system, missing, murdered, and indigenous women and people, and queer joy.
Trey, we also have another way that we connect with employees throughout the state. Hi y'all, I'm Ranisha Larkins, one of the Shared Power Consultants with the Office of Equity. I want to share with you the work of the Interagency Community Engagement Collective. This group was created to build relationships, learn from and support each other's work, as well as identify and eliminate barriers to advance co-creation in state government. We formed from other groups that were already meeting across agencies, and together we are working to implement effective and human-centered community engagement and partnership strategies.
Very cool, Ranisha. In addition to engaging with other agencies, We've also helped move the needle financially. For equity in public employment, we provided $25,000 to each of our 7 business resource groups and the Interagency Collective of State Employed Women to help Washington become an employer of choice and diversify leadership positions. For equity in leadership, we provided $250,000 to the Department of Enterprise Services for their new Leading Organizations program, which helps fund small agencies for leadership development training. Kate, tell us more about our assistance with data.
You're right, Trey. We did contribute to data equity. Hi, I'm Caitlin McNabb, the Director of Innovation and Performance. This past year, we provided $170,000 to WATEC to create current land coverage data. This type of data is foundational for many geospatial-driven analyses, and especially for understanding equitable access to healthy, built, and natural environments. In partnership with the Department of Ecology, Department of Commerce, and WATEC, we are supporting agencies across the enterprise in their important work through the acquisition of this data. Through Washington's Open Data Program, all agencies and members of the public will be able to freely and equitably access this critical information. We also supported Commerce in their approach to collecting demographic and geographic data, which evolved into an enterprise-wide approach. In collaboration with agencies that are navigating the implications of collecting demographic and geographic data, we can collectively address equitable pathways to gather, analyze, and interpret that data in a way that drives equity and moves us to action.
It's great to see equity being centered in all of these areas. Thanks so much, Kate. We were able to also provide PEAR consultations, technical assistance, and support to all these agencies. Kate, weren't we also able to lay the foundation for our statewide equity performance?
We sure were, Trey. This year we got data from agencies on the establishment of their PEAR teams. Next year we'll ask you for more. Through our survey for community compensation, we also learned that 974 volunteers were compensated through stipends or allowances. A total of $11,858.41 in allowances have been paid to community members participating in work groups. And a total of $309,777.75 in stipends were paid to community members participating in work groups.
Amazing to know people were paid to participate in these work groups. Wow. All of this, honestly, helps with our accountability in our communities. We must be transparent so we can build the trust that's needed to sustain equity. Let us all make long-term commitments to change that will continue to positively impact Washingtonians. As we look to what's next for the Office of Equity, we will support relational approaches and partnerships. We will launch resources to aid agencies in this work. We will continue to develop our PEAR framework and build out our consultation process. We will release our Equity Hub and performance dashboards so data can help drive change. And we will pursue equity in all we do. Thanks so much for watching.
Well, that was fun. Thank you to the team. Let's give a huge shout out to the whole team. That was awesome. We're modeling the way for y'all. We're getting folks on camera. You know, we're warming us up to these ideas to showcase the people behind the work. A lot of what you heard there, though, is really about establishing a shared understanding of belonging. And I'm excited because we also have another video for you that we have produced through the Office of Equity to really understand what it means for us to have belonging. Take a look.
Washington State, we are changing. Everyone deserves to belong, and we know that. So we are changing the way we operate to ensure everyone has full access to the opportunities, power, and resources needed to flourish and to achieve our full potential, becoming the first belonging state in the nation. We need people to feel like they belong. Washington government must do everything to make it so. We're moving from inclusion to belonging. Belonging means having your basic needs met and feeling safe, loved, and empowered within a community. And it is our responsibility to create a state where people feel they belong. Belonging can only be real when everyone's voice comes together to reshape our state. Small steps won't get us there. The complex problems of the 21st century require bold and courageous action. The 21st century requires belonging. So, how do we make belonging a reality for all? Washington State is building a pro-equity, anti-racism, or PEAR ecosystem. What does that mean? Pro-equity means proactively creating opportunities for those that have been left out and left behind. Anti-racism means actively challenging racism and changing the policies, behaviors, and beliefs that perpetuate racist ideas and actions. We need both to create a belonging state, and both require us to move to action. Community is our guiding light for government agencies to achieve PEAR outcomes in the state of Washington. To bridge opportunity gaps, including racial and ethnic disparities statewide and across state government. To keep Washington a great place to live, learn, work, play, and stay. Belonging is a journey, a necessary and critical journey. We have generations yet unborn depending on what we do today. Though the steps may be clear, we are under no illusion that this work will be easy. We are calling on you to do what has not been done in a state government before. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice if we bend it.
If we bend it.
If we bend it.
If we bend it.
It does not happen automatically. It does not happen through some organic process. It doesn't even happen through the power of evolution. It only happens if we decide to bend the arc of the moral universe.
If we bend it.
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 Thanks. Yes. So you saw there, how will you bend it at the end? And today we offer you the opportunity to declare how you will bend it, to pledge how you will bend it with our PEAR pledge. Y'all can see that there are some cards on your table to get you to start thinking about this question of what you will do to actually advance and actualize belonging and PEAR. There are PEAR pledge booths set out right here in those black curtain booths there where you can go in. We have some assistance from our communications team. Shout out to our comms team. Yes, thank you. Rook and Rolando will be there to help y'all decide what it is you're going to do. And this is not just for state employees. This is for all the community members who are present here in person and those of you online. We are encouraging you to make a stand today and really identify some ways that you, in your role, no matter what it is, that you can be doing something to advance pro-equity, anti-racism, and advance belonging. All right, so be thinking about it. We're going to take a short break right now. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, so go ahead, take your bio breaks, to get some water. Coming up, we have our amazing community speakers, so you don't want to miss that. Thanks so much, y'all, for this beginning. All right, all right. We got a lot of conversations happening, but we got to get going, y'all. Y'all enjoy your break? Did you enjoy that? Good conversations, everyone talking, people doing their PEAR pledge. Y'all take some time to think about your PEAR pledge? No? Somebody did, right? Okay. Thank you. Now, we're excited because this year, our theme of We the People meant that we really had to open up the doors for the people. So I'm excited because the presenters that you all are about to experience are providing excellence in the community in ways that are being felt by the people they're serving, by the families that are in their network. And they're going to be describing some of the solutions they've been creating on the ground. And so I'm so excited that we get to shine a light on the decolonizing education model that is present at Rainier Valley Leadership Academy with Miss Bayan Coleman. Let's give it up for Bayan, y'all.
I was like, it doesn't sound, oh, that's so extra. Okay. All right. So before I start, I'd like to formally ask the permission of my elders to speak today. Since many aren't physically present, I've asked for permission in advance, and one of them has showed up to honor me and give me that permission. In addition, the other folks that I have asked is Dr. Maxine Mims, Carol Peoples-Proctor, James Washington, Jeff Williams, Dr. Saul Udawale, and Dr. Georgia McDade. Okay. They tell me this is going to work when I push this. This one, right? Oh, that's not, okay, there it is. Boom. Okay. So, before we get started, I'd like to do a labor acknowledgement. We recognize and acknowledge that the burden of environmental degradation and systemic injustice squarely falls upon the labor of Black bodies in the building of our country, state, and institutions. We remember that Black bodies were born and died working the land against their will for generations through the enslavement of our ancestors who were kidnapped and brought to this country from the African continent. We acknowledge that the institution of chattel slavery was penetrated through the wombs of our female ancestors. We remember and acknowledge the continued contribution of Black women's domestic labor over the centuries to today of involuntary, voluntary, trafficked, forced, and unpaid men and women's labor in taking care of the oppressor's stolen land and their children. Because of the work, because of the sacrifice, we commit to ensuring that the labor, spirit, resilience, and leadership of Black men and women is centered in our work and in our lives. This was written by Dr. Rochelle Rogers Ard, and I want to state that it's very important that we give credit to folks who have done things to help continue to move this forward instead of appropriating and calling it our own. So before we get started, I want to go over a couple of definitions. I feel like y'all now understand what the global majority means because Trey has already done that for me. Thank you, Trey. I do want to give noticing to the power of language. The language that we use is so incredibly important. And so minority and people of color does not give power to the global majority folks. Ironically enough, we don't say people with no color, right? And so we need to make sure that we're addressing language from a assets-based approach as well. You will also hear me say Black, also known as ADOS, African American descendants of the enslaved. In other countries, it may be different. It may be the African European descendants of the enslaved or the African Caribbean descendants of the enslaved or whatever that case may be. But here in our country, we use African American descendants of the enslaved. You will also hear me say to Black, and so when I say Black, that is also what I'm referring to in many of these situations. Another term is indigenous. This is the first people of this nation of America. And in addition, you will also hear me use the term indigenous to also mean global communities that are indigenous to the homelands across our globe as well. So, who am I? My name is Bayon Coleman. I'm the daughter of Jeff Williams in Beverly, Minnesota, Washington, and the bonus daughter to James and Jay Washington. I'm the CEO of Rainier Valley Leadership Academy and the founding partner with my husband, J.C. Coleman, of the Global Majority Consortium. I've been in education and nonprofits for 20 plus years, and I come from a legacy of educators. I'm a born and raised Seattleite, which may surprise some of y'all folks because it feels like nobody is from Seattle anymore. I lived in DC for a few years, attended college at Howard University, and eventually came back and graduated from University of Washington. I come from a large family. I have 12 siblings and 2 more by my father, and over 40 nieces and nephews. We have a lot of diversity in our family: blue collar, white collar, no collar, neurodiversity, LGBTQ+, mental health challenges, physically challenged, health concerns. We have survivors of sexual assault, police brutality, parents surviving the death, murder, and suicide of their children, and survivors of systems of poverty and intentionally poor systems of education. We have seen the highs and lows of what our state can afford us as a Black, diverse family. Unfortunately, oftentimes it's less than we'd hoped for. I give you background information about who I am, and we'll dig a little bit more because the context of the folks who are doing this work is just as important as the work that's being done. This is my great-great-grandmother, Rose. She was a full indigenous woman. Her mother was captured and enslaved while pregnant with her. Rose's mother escaped in hopes of being able to come back for her daughter with more help. In the true fashion of those who enslaved, they moved my grandmother Rose to a different plantation so that when her mother and any support came to try and retrieve her, she wouldn't be there. My grandmother Rose was raised by a group of Black enslaved women, and she eventually married my grandfather John, who was also enslaved and had to buy their freedom. It said Rose was a fierce woman who rarely smiled, also because she was so sought after by her enslavers. So the only time that she did smile was when she was with family. She cared very deeply for her family. Rose's heirs gave birth to my mother, Beverly, Minnesota, Washington. My mother was born with polio. She was never supposed to survive infancy. Then she was never supposed to survive past the age of 5. Once she deceived all those odds, they said she'll never have children. This is a picture of my siblings and I. You can see if you can spot me in there somewhere. When she was about 9 years old, maybe younger, she and her sister were made to integrate schools in Topeka, Kansas, based off of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education ruling. Because of my mother's polio, my mother used arm braces, and at recess, her white classmates would take her braces from her right as the bell rang and throw them across the playground. My mother would have to army crawl to retrieve them, inevitably dirty and late to class. I want you all to just stop for a moment, and I want you to close your eyes if you'll give me that space, and imagine a little girl between the ages of 7 and 9 being spit at, called the N-word, and being made to army crawl through the dirt to retrieve her crutches. Open your eyes. Unfortunately, this is still happening. Recently, on a school testing day, my then 14-year-old son, Caden, caught public transportation to go to school, and he was spit on and called the N-word almost 70 years later. Our history tends to mirror itself, repeating itself, and this is why we must teach the truth, or else we'll be doomed to our past. I've had the privilege of being able to be brought up by my elders who poured into me after my mother's passing at 56 years old. I do this work tirelessly to honor her and to honor them and to honor my own children as well. I do this in hopes that my grandchildren will never have to live out the mirrored past me, my mom, and my son have had to live. I honor my mother, Beverly, today, who died due to the racism and stress that manifested in her body as a breast cancer that was detected by her and ignored by her doctors. Anti-racism must be eradicated through an ecosystems approach. And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that at Rainier Valley Leadership Academy. But first, I'm gonna ask y'all to bear with me and do a little bit of a case study. So in my trainings, I do a case study where, and we're not gonna do this whole thing, so this is not about to take 15 minutes. We're getting this done fast. But I'm gonna give you about the 15-second version. Many of you are familiar with the story of Cinderella. I know some of you are not. And so the story goes that she had a wealthy father, widowed, remarried. She had an abusive stepfamily. But I want you to flip that on its head a little bit, because that's my Cinderella. Cinderella is black. We're gonna say she's from New York. We're gonna say she's less than 2 years old when her father dies. Obviously, she's melanated. Her stepfamily is originally from Sweden, and they take her from New York and they move her back to Sweden with them. Cinderella's stepfamily only speaks Swedish, and they never speak of Cinderella's family or past. I want you to just mentally make a note of what disadvantages would this Cinderella going to face, and what will she need. So we do this with our teachers. We do this at different trainings for other folks as well. And these are just some of the things that consistently come up. Therapy, grief counseling, generational wealth has been lost, right? Because now that her family and her father married, she no longer has any access to any of that wealth. Her culture has been stripped from her. She has no lineage information, no historical knowledge. Her identity, just the power of knowing where you come from, what does that actually mean? There's no home language, because her home language has been completely decimated because she has no one to speak that language to and with. There's a lack of community. No one looks like her. There's no positive relationships in her life. She has no self-worth. She doesn't even know what food she's allergic to. The reality of it is that when Black and Indigenous children come to us, this is what they are dealing with. Our Black, ADOS, and Indigenous youth often never receive automatic multilingual supports. They don't always receive special education services or are even identified for needing any services. Yet the pain, torture, and trauma of being deculturized, enslaved, and harmed has lasting effects on our Black, ADOS, and Indigenous communities. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever been spit on before? Y'all can act like y'all haven't been. You've been next to someone. You've watched it. Racism in our country has been intentionally built for and targeted at Black, ADOS, and Indigenous communities. If you've ever been next to the person being spit on, you know some of it will inevitably get on you as well. Our global majority populations weren't the intended target. They do get some of the spray due to proximity, and racism does harm us all. And rather than divide us as systems of racism are designed to do, we must instead center those the oppression was designed for in our country. What is good and just and morally right for Black and Indigenous communities will benefit all of our communities. We need to stop listening to the person who's standing next to the person being spit on and start acknowledging the person who's actually being spit on. So as I told you before, at RVLA, I'm the CEO and superintendent, and let's get a couple of things out of the way now. Yes, this is a public charter district. I know some of you have your own, views around public charters, and so I'll briefly state this for you. Less than 1% of all public school age youth in Washington attend public charter schools. Public charter school districts serve Black, Indigenous, and global majority communities, and they receive 70 cents to the dollar for every dollar their families work for. In other words, public charter schools receive 30% less funding than our traditional public schools. So, regardless of how you may feel about it, my question to you is do 4,000 predominantly Black, Indigenous, and global majority children, babies, deserve less than equal funding based on adults who don't agree with what our state intended to be a support to youth at risk? A free choice for families with historically no choices. How many Black and Indigenous and global majority youth are you willing to sacrifice because you disagree with the parents their decisions chose, or the decisions that their parents chose for them? Our job as a state should be to provide quality public schooling, charters, traditional, magnet schools, etc., so there is no need for private schools unless there is a religious reason to send them. Our job should be to be closing down private schools and making sure that every single child in our state can get the best quality public schooling. So my question before we jump in is, how much longer will we intentionally segregate funding, withhold the rights of tax-paying families to receive equal funding? Y'all can figure that out. This is a state conference, y'all got that. All right, so at Rainier Valley Leadership Academy, we are a 6 through 12 school. We are currently expanding to elementary. Shout out to RVLA table back there. I'm gonna skip this one. So we have 97% of the youth in our school currently is Black, Indigenous, and global majority. That's 60% compared to other Washington state charter schools and 48% compared to Washington state as a whole. At Rainier Valley Leadership Academy, we have 72% of our teachers and educators who are global majority and 13% compared to Washington state. Now, the hard truth is that 25% of our population is coming to us reading on average 4 years behind or more. We have some 11th graders who come to us reading at a beginning level reader. That is preschool. That is a crime. So we are being asked to do the impossible, because if you could read in a year, we wouldn't need 12 years, 14 years of education to actually do it. Y'all would just magically know, and we'd spit kids out and they'd be reading. So we're being asked to have scholars come into space, go through all the things that you know that they're going through as Black, Indigenous, and global majority youth, and then be tasked with us being able to catch them up when they haven't been served for the past 7 years of their education already. Let that sink in. According to the American Health Rankings, the graduation rate for Black high school students is 73.7%. In 2021, RVOLA had 91% of scholars graduate on time, and the following year we had 100. According to the same study, to make sure that y'all have some perspective, Washington is ranked 41st in our nation, with the #1 state, Alabama, having 89.8% of Black students graduating on time. This study goes on to state that Black and Indigenous youth have never had high graduation rates and have in fact had the worst graduation rates. Again, the reason why we must center the ones who the harm was actually designed for. The study goes on to state Black and Indigenous youth have had, in short, oftentimes we want to talk about all of the other isms and everything else. If we want to begin to have a healthier Washington, we have to start centering those who are most oppressed by racism. And that is our Black and Indigenous communities first and foremost. So earlier, y'all clapped at our rates of global majority educators and whatnot. And the Johns Hopkins study tells us that by having one Black teacher by 3rd grade increases the chances by 13%. Having one Black teacher increases their college enrollment by, two Black teachers by 3rd grade increases their college enrollment by 32%. And having just one Black teacher in kindergarten increases Black scholars' college enrollment by 18%. In contrast, when we talk about high school dropout rates, making sure that there is a Black teacher for scholars who are Black and having free and reduced lunch decreases their dropout rate by 29%. Just for Black males alone, and we know who is populating our prisons right now, intentionally, Black males, their dropout rate from high school reduces by 39%. So in education, we recognize there is racism, yet we continue to let racist systems, leaders, and educators hold space with our most brilliant and impressionable minds. As a state, I'll ask you, will we condone pedophiles being in classrooms with our teachers? Would we condone teachers poisoning our children and giving them Lysol as juice? So why do we all allow for racism to persist with our most brilliant minds in our state? How do we better protect them? Could we allocate funding to pay educators as professionals? Could we hold them to higher standards as well as we do like doctors and lawyers, more time in school? Some food for thought is in the juvenile detention centers, employees are required to have a background check, a physical fitness test, a psych exam, a lie detector test, and a drug test. To be in education, you need a background check. So we complain about these things, but we actually don't put anything in place to make sure that we're protecting anyone. So in education in general, we are seeing discrepancies in what we are being asked to teach in general terms, what employers need versus what we're teaching, and then what will actually provide liberatory education for youth to be scholars, critical thinkers, folks that can innovate and build a better and healthier society for us all. So at RVLA, we do things a little bit differently. We have mastery-based grading, meaning that an assignment doesn't just get passed off or next. We want to make sure that they're actually mastering those standards. Do you actually know how to comprehend text? Do you know how to annotate? We are having conversations with them about the different perspectives within our histories, making sure that they can actually read those for themselves and come up with their own assumptions and opinions and critically analyze that information. We have a robust SEL program. Are there any board members in here of anything? Like if you're on any type of board, will you raise your hand for me? How many of y'all have to do social emotional learning with the board? No hands raised. At RVLA, we do. We ensure that our board members sit down in Indigenous practice circles, right, as a global Indigenous practice, and that we are actually having conversations around who everyone is in that space so that we can better understand how decisions will be made for scholars. If you do not understand folks' history and their past, you will get into a space with your colleagues and everybody else and then be trying to figure out why this one person is trying to make this one decision that doesn't make any sense to you. We do that with our teachers. And then we have every single scholar who actually has a mentor, and they do that with their mentors and the rest of their classmates as well in their small mentor groups. We have in-house therapy for scholars, not because we have the funding for it, but because we find the funding for it. Because much like Black Cinderella, we recognize that there's a lot of trauma coming into the space. We also have an in-school health clinic. Many of y'all may be familiar with the Freedom Clinic. They do naturopath. Please clap for that. We're one of the first school-based clinics that they actually have. So they do naturopath, acupuncture, massage. They provide nursing supports, health checkups for staff and scholars, and eventually that will be opened up to families as well. We have anti-racist practices, trainings, implementation. We have a modified schedule that allows for us to support them with credit recovery and enrichments. So y'all are familiar with like a college schedule where it's like y'all are learning 3 or 4, like they'll tell you, if you take more than 4 classes, it's too many when you're in college, right? That's a full load. But yet we keep on asking for our youth to actually take 6 to 8 classes every single day. And yet their brain is not fully developed yet. How does that work? Somebody show me where that math makes sense. It doesn't. By making sure that we do a humanities class, ELA, or social studies, and by ensuring that we do a math or science class, and then making sure that they have their electives, then we can actually ensure that by the end of the day, there's actually additional space for them to actually have additional credits. Because we know that a lot of our scholars are actually working and that they have to help provide for their families. And so they're not coming back to us at the end of the day or during the summertime to come and do credit recovery if it's needed. So now we have that built-in buffer within our day, and we can also make sure that they're actually spending more time to master what they're learning rather than just having a checkbox of 7 to 8 different classes and saying, you've got this done, you've met your metrics, great, move on. Since we're receiving only 70 cents on the dollar, we have to be creative with how we support the mental health of our educators and scholars, and these are just some of the ways that we do it. Our brightest minds have held court with international authors such as Dr. Gholdy Muhammad, Dr. Bettina Love, and I'd ask for you to please point to any scholar that only deserves 70 cents to the dollar's worth of education. This is your brilliance. So some of the things that y'all can do is think about cultivating paid internships based on attendance and grades, making sure that scholars, that you're connecting with schools to actually do this work. Am I about at time, Trey? Okay, excellent. I'm going to, we'll run through these really quick. But the Washington State of Health said that y'all actually have key points and resolutions that y'all are supposed to be doing. We know that the funding model does not currently support what is actually happening in spaces. So in Atlanta, they did a study where 74% of COVID-19 related nonprofits were white-led organizations that were receiving support to actually support Black organizations. White women-led organizations receive more funding than anybody, or than all of the Black-led organizations combined. And so oftentimes what we hear is that you can't find the employees that you actually need. And I'll tell you that those are lies. For the Global Majority Consortium, we found 150 Black businesses just from the Central District to downtown Renton. And we provided them with $5 million worth of support based off of grants. If you do not start making sure that within your organizations, you stop isolating your Black, Indigenous, and global majority folks, please understand that racism is murder and that you're actually killing them. I'm gonna say that again for you. Racism is murder, and by isolating and not creating a sense of belonging for them and protecting them, it is murder. Public education has the power to be transformative for all of our communities, and the future of our nation and our state is reliant upon it. If you would like to connect with us or have us as consultants come and do work with you to actually show you how this work can actually be done, you can do that QR code, and we have a table out here. You can also come and speak to our folks from Rainier Valley Leadership Academy and ask whatever questions you have. But we're here for support, and we would ask that you would start looking to Black and Indigenous communities first to be your consultants and your contractors, and stop allowing for other people to capitalize off of our pain and paying them for it. Thank you.
Oh my word. Let's give it up for Bayon Coleman, y'all. Wow. Phenomenal, Bayon. Thank you so much. Next up, we are excited because the Black Prisoners Caucus community group is here. We got Blaze and we got so many others. Y'all know, go ahead, give it up for them. All of the community group members, please come to the stage. Give us some of your brilliance so we can understand the work y'all are doing. Thank you.
Good morning. Can everybody hear us? Absolutely, thank you, thank you. First, I want to, give honor to the sister who just spoke in the presentation and all the amazing work that you guys are doing. Let's give it up for them. We're going to speak soon enough about the specific work of the BPC, but liberation education is quintessential to who we are and what we do as way of our TEACH program. And so that definitely resonates with us, and definitely expect for us to be connecting with you all soon enough. So first and foremost, I want to greet you all in the spirit of Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. I stand by the principle and the belief that we have the power and the ability, the agency to choose for ourselves, to define for ourselves, to create for ourselves. And this was birthed and resonated within the space of the Black Prisoners Caucus. And so today, we embark on a journey through a riveting history of the BPC, an organization that traces its roots back to a pivotal year in 1972, At a time that is marked with fervor of the Civil Rights era and the Black Liberation Movement, these are the things that were quintessential to the birth and the origins of the Black Prisoners Caucus, particularly within the confines of the Department of Correction. We are a pro-Black organization within an anti-Black institution. And we continue to stand strong. We continue to do the work, and here we are today. As we navigate the historical tapestry, it becomes evident that the BPC is not confined to a single chapter, but has woven itself into the very fabric of our communities, where we have chapters throughout the state, within state institutions, as well as we have an emerging chapter within our youth facilities. And so we're creating liberating spaces for folks that are within the system of confinement, the carceral system. Yet the story doesn't conclude with these remarkable chapters, as we are evidence that in 2022, we as the Black Prisoners Caucus formed a new chapter, founding the Black Prisoners Caucus Community Group. Picture this: recently liberated BPC members embodying the essence of freedom, coming together to establish a chapter that signifies not only liberation from physical constraints, but also liberation of the spirit. So again, I greet you in the spirit of Kuji Chakalia. The history of the BPC is not just a mere chronicle. It is a symphony of perseverance, of courage, and unyielding pursuit of justice. Today, as we unravel the narrative of this organization, our organization, let us not only witness its past, but also envision the future. The BPC stands as a testament to the enduring power of collective action, a force that transcends eras and propels us towards a brighter tomorrow. Let the history of the BPC inspire all of us. In defining who we are as the BPC, next slide, please. We are the torchbearers of a legacy forged in the crucible of adversity. Our roots are grounded in the Civil Rights era and the Black Liberation Movement, and reminds us that the journey is both profound and interconnected. Ubuntu, I am because we are. Through the chapters established in the Department of Corrections facilities, we have become beacons of hope, illuminating the path towards justice and equality, and furthermore, equity. Our identity is not confined to the walls that surround us, but rather transcends these, and stands as we continue to strive for transformation in the communities that we have long been absent from, belong to. We are architects of change, recognizing the transformation begins within ourselves and ripples outward. We continue to strive, understanding that it's education, it's advocacy, it's working in solidarity with community, that we're able to affect true change. As a Black Prisoners Caucus community group, we're not merely just an organization, we are a living, breathing testament. Furthermore, testimony to the strength and resolve that arises within individuals that come together for a shared vision. This power vibrates through the essence of who we are as an organization. The fact that we have been systemically placed as opposition and opponents to one another, those who look just like us. But despite those obstacles, despite those adversities, despite the systemic oppressions that have kept us, we have came together to build powerful communities together. So, with every raised hand, every raised voice, we write a new chapter of our story. We write a story that is continuing to grow, and every day is continuing to awaken within each and every one of us. And as we go through this journey with you all today in our presentation, we invite you to be along with us in this journey. Thank you, and I hope that this journey not only uplifts your spirit, but also inspires you to be a part of the amazing work that we're doing with the Black Prisoners Caucus Community Group. Thank you.
What's happening, Tacoma? All right, all right. My name is Kamani Carter, and I was a child who grew up here, right here in the streets of Tacoma. But unfortunately, my childhood was arrested, as an underdeveloped youth, right, who didn't have access to a lot of the resources and a lot of the wonderful, great organizations that we see in our community today, serving young folks. But I ended up going to prison in 1997. And Washington State sentenced me to a life without the possibility of parole sentence because of a lot of the trauma that I was enduring and how I was responding through violence as a way of resolving my issues. And so as a young person who grew up in prison, who didn't graduate from high school, I had to be able to find myself amongst the brothers who we realized that we didn't have a voice out in community that was speaking and representing the issues that ultimately jeopardized our growth and our development. And so what I want to talk to you about is how we here stand as a way of amplifying the voice of those who can't speak for themselves. The young people who are 18, 19, 20 years old, who are charged as an adults, who are locked up in our correctional system in the whole, right? They can't speak for themselves because the system isn't giving them an opportunity to be able to talk about the issue that ultimately landed them there in the first place. And so as the Black Prisoners Caucus, that was one of the things that we were able to do inside. Now we're coming to the community to let you know that we have an issue that is continuing to be on our hands. And we have a whole bunch of lost brothers and sisters who are incarcerated here in the Washington State Department of Corrections. We ain't gotta look to another state. We can look right here. My Native brothers, my Mexican-speaking brothers, everybody who come from poor and under-resourced communities are locked behind walls, voiceless. And we are here as a way of letting y'all know that they are people too. And so as we amplify the voices of those on the inside, man, we come, with a heartfelt message to let you know that we have folks who are taking responsibilities for their actions because they have healed through their trauma. But now we need community to be able to respond as a way of letting them know that cages is no longer the place for people who have healed through the things that they have experienced. So we need y'all to help us bring them home. While we was inside, as we started to amplify our voice, one of the things that we had to do was we also had to create education spaces for ourselves because the state was not providing any resources to people who were sentenced to longer than 7 years. Hence, most of the folks who were Black and brown were sentenced to longer than 7 years. And so we had to create opportunities for ourselves in order for us to be able to learn how to read, learn how to write, help people get past their GEDs, and ultimately go off into college as a way of being able to help them understand is that we have to understand the history that's been set, because that's the only way for us to make better decisions for ourselves moving forward. And so what the Black Prisoners Caucus did, we created the Black Prisoners Caucus Teach program, which takes for taking education and creating history. This was the opportunity that we had to do as a way of taking agency of our own future because we realized that education was important. Education was the thing that was ultimately the thing that we lost value in because we didn't get an opportunity to see that Black teacher before our 3rd grade or ever. And so now when there was a disconnect, we felt that we were not only competent but capable of being able to not only to teach the lessons, to help people understand the key concepts and all that type of stuff in order to help build self-confidence. And so one of the things we're also going to do is to teach you guys how you guys can help the BPC Teach program in order for us to continue to maintain liberation education spaces. Because education is a right, it isn't a privilege. And we need to make sure that there is no barriers that is preventing people from getting access to college education. And so as we come in community, what we want to do is just to make sure that, man, we continue to keep representing the issues that we're talking about. And now I'll be able to extend this to my other brothers up here. But, man, thank y'all for taking the time to be able to listen to the voices here who's speaking, and let's know that we can do all of this work together. Thank you.
Yeah, greetings. It's a little bit more difficult for me to speak. They didn't make this for regular sized people. So I got to do a little bit of adjusting. Thank you, Trey. I appreciate your help. No, so my name is Eugene Youngblood, and I'm also a member of the Black Prisoners Community Group. And so how I got here is really important. Context is really important, right? So as an 18-year-old at a time in my life where I should have been thinking about who I was going to take to the prom, what I was going to wear to the prom. Instead, I was standing trial, right? And ultimately, I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole as well as an 18-year-old. How am I standing before you today? Well, eventually what happened was Governor Jay Inslee released me on clemency. I didn't finish my sentence. I didn't get to go through the help of any courts or anything like that. I was recognized for the work that I did inside, my commitment to other folks, and what they said that I was extraordinary in my work and my help with other people. And so here I am today doing the same thing that I was doing when I was inside. I was committed to helping folks achieve their greatest potential when I was inside, even though I thought I wasn't getting out. So here I am today, and folks think that they want to say that Jay Inslee gave me the opportunity, but really it was the Black Prisoners Caucus that gave me the opportunity, right? That gave me the opportunity not just to be on the other side, right? Not just to be on the other side of the wall, but to be on the other side of myself. Just think about that, on the other side of myself. And so now I find myself in the position of being the director of court support. So we helping folks who are going back to court, and we writing letters for them, and we talking to judges for them. Because one thing we want to do is we want folks to see our humanity. We're just asking for people to see the intrinsic value that people have, right? And we want to just see that those of us who you said were the worst of the worst are also the best of the best. It just depends on when you catch us, right? And it depends on where we're at in our healing process, because we know that people don't change, we know that they heal. And we know that folks just need an opportunity to heal. And how can we get that? And so when we go, another thing we do for the Black Prisoners Caucus we strive for is in our reintegration program. And what we do in our reintegration program is something totally different. Where other folks offer a lot of resources and they do this and they do that, we offer relationship, right? And so we want to build the bridge starting relationship, because no matter what you do for somebody in terms of providing a resource, what happens when real life happens, right? What happens when they need to call somebody and ask them, how do I open a bank account? Or what happens when I get off the bus over here? Or what happened when this experience happened for you in life? One of the things people don't really understand or really be able to appreciate is, like, take for instance, when I was in prison, I probably made 20 decisions a day, maybe max, right? I get out, I gotta make 1,000 in an hour. Like, just think about how tremendously impacting that is on your life, and the confusion of somebody asking you which one do you want, and you don't have context for anything. You're just stuck in this space where you're like, and so the hardest part of that is you just have to have somebody with you, right? And we're not here to hold nobody's hand. We're here to just guide the light and help folks and whisper in their ear. We're here to empower people, not save anybody. We want to empower folks so that they can make the move on themselves, so they can continue to be the best version of who they are. I just ask you for a second to think about this. Just think about this with me. Please indulge me for a second, right? Like, think about it like if Chrysler, Ford, or GM had an issue with a car, they're going to do a recall. If there's a problem with the ignition, there's a problem with the faulty brakes, if there's a problem with the seat, but with the airbag, they're going to recall it, right? They're going to take it off the market. And they're not just going to put it in the warehouse somewhere and hold it there for 10 years or 15 years or whatever and then put it back out on the street. They're going to send the mechanics after it and find out what's the problem. What was the root cause of the problem, right? And what is a mechanic? A mechanic is a car doctor, right? And so this is how important we know that cars are. And then they look at them, they make the adjustment, and then they say, okay, what was the root cause? What caused all this? Then they run some more tests, and then they say, okay, let's see if it's ready to be back in society. Okay, it is. Let's run some more tests. And then they put the cars back in society when they finally feel like, okay, this is ready, right? So here's the question for you. How come we got more care and concern for our cars than we do our citizens? Because when our citizens have a default, and we get remanded, we go into the penitentiary. and nobody's asking us what happened. Nobody's asking us what happened to you. Nobody's asking, how did you get in a space where you didn't understand how to handle this trauma or this issue that helped you? How can we help you get to a point of healing? And instead, they just hold you there and keep you there and then release you and say, good luck, and give you $200 or $40, excuse me, give you $40 and tell you, have a nice life. Hope you make it. But really what they're doing is they're winking at you saying, we'll see you in a little while. We'll see you back soon. And so what we want to do is we want to curb that, right? We want to get to a position where we're going from 0 to 100. We're going from 0 community custody to 100% community support. Because we know that the community want to keep people free. They want to keep people out, and we want people to be the very best version of who they can be. And that's who we want. So we want to be committed to the community as much as we know the community is committed to us. So we're here today also as a homage just to say thank you, and we appreciate you. I went to prison at 18. I was released at 48. Kamani did 25 years. Blaze, he did 18. Cyril, 17. 26. And so the point of me saying that we did all these years is to say, you still welcomed us back and welcomed us with open arms. And that's what we need to do for the folks who's coming next, because we need to do with healing and love and empathy and care, because we've been doing it with punishment and we see where that's getting us, right? We see where that's getting us nowhere. We're going around in a circle. So let's try to lead with love. Let's try to lead with care and concern and have some empathy for folks and believe the very best that folks can be. And with that said, I'll make space for my brother. Thank you.
Ooh. One thing about it, ain't no cap up here. There's no cap up here. First, I want to feel like I kind of did a disservice. We were introduced. They put my face up, put my name up. And nah, it's not me, it's us. And so, this is Eugene Youngblood. This is Kamani Carter. This is my brother James Rollins. And this is Cyril Waldron. And there's about 20 of us within the Black Prisoners Caucus community group.
And women.
And yeah, I said us. That's why I ain't forgetting my sisters. Listen, they won't, and they make sure we don't forget them. And so I want to take this time to acknowledge our sisters. Our sisters couldn't be here today, but our sisters is forefront and struggle with us. And there's no Black Prisoner Caucus community group without the Black Prisoner Caucus. And so we have chapters all across the state of individuals, individual bodies who identify as how they identify that are part of this work. And what I want to say is that we're unfortunately extraordinary. Unfortunately extraordinary. And I'm going to start with us. I'm unfortunately extraordinary because I served 18 years on a 30-year sentence. My brother Sains? 26. On what? 38 years. He did 26 years on a 38-year sentence. He got free early. 17 on almost 40 years. 30 on life. 25 on life. And they trying to keep it real. They're trying to put my brother back in prison right now as we speak. You see, we're unfortunately extraordinary because we were proactive in finding our liberation. Whether it was community support through a clemency process, whether laws were changed where we were to come back and get resentenced. You see, we were active. We were helping each other with our legal work. We were connecting with the community. The community spoke for us. The community spoke in these tribunals with these principle makers to say, hey, these individuals are more valuable to the community outside than they are on the inside. You see, our sisters and brothers on the inside are unfortunately extraordinary because as we speak, there's members in the BPC right now that are directly working with legislators who are active in trying to create policies to undo the historic racism and inequality of what we've been going through. They're on the inside doing this right now. You see, we are unfortunately extraordinary because when our public school system failed us, because we came from under-resourced environments and communities in which they chose to build prisons to put us in and not schools to help us build up. And as our sisters showed, miseducation, not even teaching us how to be in the workforce for our communities. And quick shout out to Seattle, right? One of the tech capitals of the world, where most of the individuals who take these tech jobs come from out of state because our school system wasn't teaching us to do them, right? Our sisters and brothers on the inside and us right now are unfortunately extraordinary because we are teaching ourselves. Our sisters and brothers are on the inside helping each other, tutor each other, guide each other to take accredited courses to get degrees, and are creating their own curriculums that are culturally based. You see, we are unfortunately extraordinary because when it comes to reintegration or reentry, it's not about just transaction and giving people resources. We have to be in relationship. You see, we succeed when we're in relationship with all y'all, with shared values of this struggle of undoing the historical harms and inequities of our state and local government. And so we are unfortunately extraordinary because, again, with our court support, we've been advocating for ourselves to get ourselves out of prison. And what I'm wanting to talk about right now is that we are unfortunately extraordinary because all the things that we're doing right now, that we're standing and we survived, we are on an effort for us to participate in our civic process and civic duties, to vote, to ultimately run for government, to be principals and authors of legislation that undo the historical laws that are policies that are in place that are continuing to harm our community. You know, we stand before you again and say we're unfortunately extraordinary. But what makes us more fortunate or less unfortunate is that when we're in relationship and in solidarity with other individuals, when we are in relationship with y'all who recognize these wrongs and are willing to do meaningful things and be in meaningful relationships with us to change these things and make a better space for all of us. And so, with that being said, you know, I just want to take a few moments for how you can help. And again, the first thing of how you can help is just be in relationship. Be in relationship with members of the Black prisoner community group, but be in relationship with individuals who've been impacted that you know. You see, we've been touched by this criminal justice system so much that we're 1 to 2 degrees separated everybody from somebody who's been justice involved. So connect, build relationships, bring them back in the community and not otherize them. And to connect with us is, you know, our Instagram. We're a fledgling group. We're building right before your eyes. And you can check our emails. And then you can also mix and mingle with us and get our contact information for us to connect with us. And you can volunteer, and you can also donate. But I do want to, if anybody else.
Volunteers. I mean, I'm going to just go ahead and just leave with this. One thing about it, man, is that nobody is an island. That means that nobody can do it by themselves. For people who got extra time on their hands that want to be able to see some of these programs flourish, give more than your money. Give your time. Because time is going to be the thing that ultimately creates the relationship in order to make sure that the work is happening. You mean, so that's our time, and thank y'all for taking the time out to listen to what we're going to say.
Yes. Thank you so much. Y'all, I got straight chills. I don't know about y'all, but this is so needed for us to understand from community how we connect and move change, y'all, how we really impact Washingtonians. I'm excited because this brother coming up next has been doing some phenomenal work in the community around development and understanding the need to be led by community voice. Let's give it up for K.Y. King Garrett of Africatown Community Land Trust.
Peace, good afternoon, or good morning. That's right. If we want it, we got to say it. And it's needed in our world, it's needed in our community. That was two powerful presentations, so let's give it up again for Sister Bayan and the Black Prisoners Caucus Community Group. You're getting the real solutions. So, my name is K.Y. King-Gare. I'm a third-generation community builder from the Central District of Seattle, belovedly our Africa town in Seattle. And here, appreciate the opportunity. I want to give respect and gratitude to the team at the Office of Equity, Sister Megan, Sister TraeAnna, bringing the brilliance up here to bring us all together today for this important topic. I need a little support on my, it's in front of me, but how do I, okay, there we go. All right, there we go, all right. So my purpose is to just speak to the fact that Washington State can and should be a leader in designing, investing, and building a new normal rooted in equity and move away from the socioeconomic current Jim Crow apartheid conditions that persist in too many parts of the state. Now, I'm going to share some perspectives that may go against the status quo and the normalized narratives, and that may make some people feel a little uncomfortable, but if we keep doing what we've been doing, we'll keep getting what we've been getting. And I think it's very clear from some of the other presentations, we are well aware that the Washington State education system has been failing our communities, which results in our communities being unsafe. We know that the Washington State Department of Corrections has been failing our communities, making our communities more unsafe. Specifically, my focus today is going to be in the spirit of Dr. Powell, who advanced the concept of targeted universalism, that we have a universal goal of peace, of everyone being able to live their fullest and best lives for the benefit of all, but yet being targeted and being clear that not everybody has the same conditions, circumstances, and needs. And I think that's one of the principles when we talk about equity. So I'm going to be speaking specifically related to the conditions of Black or African American descendants of those who were enslaved in this land, whose family lines have endured the most horrendous conditions that have been known on the planet Earth, and who have been stripped of their equity and wealth, their labor capital, which was forced to be invested into the enterprise that we know to be the most wealthiest nation on earth, the United States of America. Now, moving into that, being here in the state of Washington, I first want to just acknowledge, some of our founders around Indigenous Peoples Day, which is known to some as Columbus Day. There's a meme or a saying that goes around, the only Christopher we acknowledge is Wallace. And I'm here to speak about the fact that, the George Washingtons that we acknowledge or need to acknowledge are those such as George Washington Bush, who was a pioneer, one of the first to come here to this, what was a territory known as Washington. Another George Washington that established what is known as Centralia. Because the Washington that we see on the flag actually never made it to this state, right? Never labored for this to be here. And for many, the image is one of significant trauma. If you're an indigenous person, the fact is, he was a killer of indigenous people. If you're a black person of African descent, the fact is, he was a human trafficker of black people. And so, just imagine, and would we ever expect Jewish children to go into school every day and look at a flag that has the picture of Adolf Hitler? We would not. Yet this is what our children do every day. When we go into what is considered a court of law and we look at the image that is supposed to be a place of us receiving justice, do you think it's an image that makes us think that we're going to receive justice? And do we? Just something to think about, the power of images and the narratives that are connected to them. And so, William Gross, you see George Washington Bush at the top, George Washington, and William Gross is the other pioneer. And William Gross was a pioneer. He came to Seattle after working on the Underground Railroad, facilitating and negotiating safe passage for black people escaping slavery into Panama and Canada. And he came here to Seattle. He was the second black resident, and he was an entrepreneur, developer. He owned a hotel, a restaurant, and eventually he bought 12 acres of land in what would become known as the Central District. And he began to partition his land off for other black families to settle, and that's what made the Central District to facilitate the path for it becoming a black community over 140 years ago in 1882. Now, you can see just some of the history of the community which took root and grew, still in the face of significant challenges and obstacles as black people migrated to the Northwest seeking to escape the hostile conditions of primarily post-slavery, post-Civil War South, which was filled with the sharecropper society, black codes, the KKK, et cetera, seeking better qualities of life in the West, in the North, and many settled in Seattle. And throughout the time of being there, they faced the different from restrictive housing covenants, which limited where people could buy and live, and forced them to have to buy on contract when they did buy at escalated prices, which took equity out of those families and wealth out of those families, generational wealth, to redlining, to urban renewal, or what James Baldwin called Negro removal, which again, through eminent domain, took land, capital, wealth out of black families, to divestment, benign neglect into the 70s under the Nixon and Moynihan administrations, into the 80s, Reaganomics, divestment, factories moving overseas, resources being taken out of communities, and then drugs being proliferated into our communities throughout this country, which then paved the way for Bush Sr. War on Drugs, Part 2, with Weed and Seed, which started in the Central District of Seattle, a federal program which targeted our communities, which started right there. I think it was here on the hilltop as well in Tacoma. And mass incarceration with the Clinton crime bill, which filled prisons with many of my peers that I went to school with. Again, taking capital, interrupting development, and paving the way for then predatory lending. So I basically covered, every decade we had a significant effort which prevented the growth, development, economic mobility, and thriving of our community in the spaces where we have been forced to be. At the same time, the city of Seattle, particularly, has become a wealthy, thriving, growing place of economic development, particularly around the tech industry, which has grown without us due to, again, the education system, as you heard spoken to previously, not preparing us effectively to take on the opportunities that exist around us in these many growing sectors. And so today, as the city and even the state has experienced great economic growth, we see our community going in an opposite trajectory. We have seen that. And you can see that clearly here. And we're at an equity summit, so you're mostly familiar with the many statistics across every quality of life indicator that shows the inequities. But we know these are not by accident. And so for us, when we looked at the Seattle 2035 plan, which is the comprehensive plan for the city of Seattle, part of the Growth Management Act of the state of Washington, we didn't see our community in the future of the city. We weren't part of the skyline. And, you know, that is due to the many policies and practices from a public government side as well as the private corporate side in collusion, which has prevented us. And this has been documented. This is not my fantastic story. We have legislation that passed in 2019, HB House Bill 1918, which says that the legislator finds that the Central District is widely recognized as the historic center of Seattle African American community, and that the legislator further finds that the Central District has been adversely impacted by public works, capital projects with significant public funding, meaning the government had a hand in it, and some dollars in it, and other land use decisions which have contributed to the dislocation, displacement, and the disintegration of an identifiable existing community and its historical character. So it's very clear and it's on record that harm and damage and injury has been caused. And so with that, remedy, right, repair, restoration, and making whole is in order. That's the only way we're going to get to equity. And for short, the word is called reparations. And so when we saw the plan and we didn't see ourselves in it, we didn't just, you know, fall down and give up, you know, because that's not our DNA. If that was the DNA of our ancestors, we wouldn't be here today. And just like you saw just before I came to the stage, you saw others, brothers who, under the most difficult circumstances, still took it upon themselves to not accept the script that was written for them. Because we know in the movie, who's usually the first person that dies? Yeah. So they took that script, put it to the side, and began to author a new script where they have agency, power, you know, are realizing their potential and making a positive impact in our communities and in our world. And that's the same thing when we came and said, well, we're not in the future, we're gonna write ourselves into the future, and began our own planning process to write a history that would include us being able to grow and thrive in place. And we brought our community together to imagine and to design what needed to be built, and to say, what would a community that is centered around our best interests, our thriving, our gifts, our challenges, our unique ways of being, what would that look like and what would it contain? And how do we look in our own history in the principle of Sankofa to look back at the greatness that we have given to the world, from being the birthplace of humanity to giving the world math and science, and giving this country so many inventions, so much culture, so much that we do not receive equity, an equity stake in. We don't benefit from those things, others do, which is what slavery was set up, where our labor, wealth, and capital was maldistributed to the benefit of others, and that continues today, and that value continues to compound, because at the end of chattel slavery, the wealth wasn't redistributed, and the wealth didn't disappear. It continued to be reinvested in the society. And so we know in compound interest, it's either working for you or it's working what? If you're in debt, it's working against you. So on somebody's balance sheet, it's an asset. On another, it's a liability. And so out of that came our vision for Africatown as a thriving district and community where the beauty, the brilliance, and the best of the black experience in African diaspora, regardless of time and place, could be the foundation, the database which we draw from to build into the future. But we were facing a significant problem because the result of all of those decades of policies and practices that were anti-black, racism-based, systemic, and structural, our community had been decimated. And so the problem that we had to address first was just the loss of population, loss of people, right? You look at a community that was reported to be 90% black, down to less than 10%. That doesn't just happen by accident. It's a lot of systemic policies and practices being enacted. And so our response was really first to address the housing situation. And so we had to build housing that our community could afford. We had been blocked out of the economic mobility. And as the cost of housing is rising, I know there's a lot of people I grew up, they're here down in Tacoma now for those very reasons. And so the Liberty Bank building was the first project. Liberty Bank was the first and only black bank, I think, that was in Washington State, second black bank west of the Mississippi, opened in 1968. My grandfather was one of the co-founders. But it went out of service because that's a whole nother story of systemic racism. There's a book called The Color of Money, and you can learn about what happened to black banks all across this country. But right here, our family lived through that. And they said if you didn't keep your bank in this in your community where the economy is depressed, and you have to compete with all the white banks, and this was the bank regulator, and it's in the press, you can find it, then it's going to be shut down. And the black bank president said, well, if all the white banks leave out of our community, then I can consider that. But as long as they have a bank downtown and a bank in our community, I'm going to open a bank in our community, open a bank downtown. Well, that's called being an uppity, not knowing your place, and the bank is no longer here because of that. But we fought to make sure that this development honors the mission, which is to give economic mobility and access to our community. That's what this is. There's thriving businesses there, 115 units of affordable housing on this project. It opened in 2019. Africatown Plaza is currently leasing up right now. This is a second project. First project we've led. You see the development, the design reflects the community. And so this here, I'm proud to say we have 50% black contractor participation building this. Okay? This is about moving dollars. Now, we always hear that we want more black participation in contracting in this, but we never can get it. Well, maybe this is a model that can be shared and spread. This is a project which will be approximately 200 affordable housing units in the community that was actually supported. This acquisition was supported by the state and the governor in 2021. It was going to be unaffordable housing, and community rallied to stop that and was able to reach a deal where the developer divested, and the community is now going to have an opportunity again to bring people back and continue to have continuity in the community. This is a project led by young people through community passageways and creative justice. Said that we need housing because many young people end up in the criminal injustice system because of the economics, being homeless. And so this is going to be housing with resources and services on site. And we're a partner and proud to partner in that as a developer. But we know rental is not all we need. That doesn't build equity and allow generational wealth, so we're also working on affordable home ownership. Where our community is overrepresented in the houseless population, we had to come with a solution to that because black men, just like they're overrepresented in the incarcerated population, overrepresented in those that are experiencing homeless. And underserved. So we decided to develop a model in the building that exists now on the site that's going to be redeveloped to provide culturally responsive trauma-informed care. And since opening in 2021, has served hundreds of primarily black men in that space with dignity and respect, and striving to allow them to return back to their communities as builders and moving it forward. So again, models, establishing models. When we look at the inequitable participation in economic growth in our community, we see that we're not participating equitably in the job opportunities, right? You can see that, it's clear. I don't have to, spell that out. And so our response there was to create an innovation hub, repurpose an old former fire station, a fire station where black firefighters first worked, where 2 black fire chiefs came out of in the Central District Fire Station, what was Fire Station number 6, and make it an innovation hub where we're developing our young people's brilliance and innovation and genius to take on those jobs and be problem solvers within the global economy and support our businesses from that. And looking at, creating pipelines to productivity and prosperity and make sure they're not getting, derailed into the pipeline of prison that we hear about so often. And a big part of our work is also developing frameworks, because we hear a lot of words that are used like equitable development, and the question is what makes it equitable? Well, for us, we define equity as ownership and as of control. And so we can look at each one of these projects and can be measured. They're measurable. Measurable by square feet. How much of it do we actually own? How much land, square feet, square miles of the budget? How much of that actually goes to our community, right? Because what we see time and time again is things in our name, but others, as Sister Bayon spoke to, benefiting, which only perpetuates the inequity. And so some of the lessons learned as I come to a close would be that, 1, there are solutions that work, right? They're all around us, but they have to be invested in. 2, be clear about what is being solved and for who. If we're talking about the issues of black people who descended and have endured all of the things that have been spoken about, we don't want that to get lost by solving every issue that everyone faces in a community. They first put us into something called POC, people of color. We don't really, we didn't, I don't think we opted in, someone labeled that. Then we said, well, we need to be able to focus on our issues because, the circumstances we face are unique. Our relationship to this society and this country is unique, and it needs to be dealt with as such. And that started to advance, and it was black. And then they said, well, what about the indigenous people? And we definitely support indigenous people's claim to their land. And they have how they advanced that. Then they brought back POC. And what's the new term called? BIPOC. We don't, I think our delegation respectfully is seceding from anything that perpetuates anti-black racism. And sometimes under the cloak of inclusiveness, that's what we see happening. Rather than dealing with the issue that's in front of us, we say, well, there's a lot of issues. And so reparations is very specific. If I run into your car and cause damage to your car and you find out I'm at fault, you're gonna initiate a claim so that we can restore your car, right? So what if I respond and say, well, there's a lot of cars that have been hit and need to be repaired, so I don't know where to give the money, right? That doesn't make sense. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, is that correct? I'm not gonna run in the room and say, well, what about colon cancer? What about diabetes, right? Because this is something that we're focused on. So that's important, to stay focused on the issues. Targeted universal, Dr. Powell gave us a good model for addressing that. Bold interventions and investments are needed to achieve impact at scale, okay? So we're not talking millions. We need to be talking, I need some help. Billions. We're talking billions, and at a national scale, we're talking trillions when we're talking about striving to just restore and repair some of the harm that we've experienced. All of it can be captured within any dollar amount. Another issue is that when resources do get allocated, we find that white organizations or organizations that are not in our community, rooted in the community, accountable to the outcomes, are constantly resourced, while our community members, which have the solutions, which you saw with Rainier Valley Leadership Academy for Education, Black Prisoners Caucus, I'm pretty sure they could solve our issues around improving the corrections and actually having some correction inside of those institutions, and they've proved it. And 5, community must stay engaged, because we start, a legislation gets passed, dollars are allocated, and then they start going to different departments, and we don't know what happens by the time it gets to the community or doesn't get to the community. So community must stay engaged along the way to make sure that the impact is meeting the intent. And now towards equity, and I'm gone. I'm at time. Towards a new normal rooted in equity, we have to be focused on land, transferring land back to our community for our own development. You know, State Department of Transportation projects, many infrastructure projects have been identified within that bill that have taken land out of our community. If you go back, the land is not back in the hands of our community, someone else is there. Okay? And we propose a $1 billion anti-displacement fund just to support acquisition and development. So we're focused on, again, equity in the land and the development of community, because everybody and everything needs space to exist. All things that are matter that exist need a space to exist, or they can exist. And lastly, for us, by us, with us, and nothing about us without us, community control of the resources that are supposed to impact our lives, and non-Black organizations should not be competing with Black organizations for resources to help the Black community achieve equity. So with that, you can connect with us online. We have a table outside, but those are just some lessons from our work. I appreciate the opportunity to bring the big state right down to our neighborhood, local level, and to understand that there's solutions there that can be spread across the state to address not only our conditions, but others. Thank you.
Wow. Let's give it up for K.Y. King Garrett, y'all, of Africatown Community Land Trust. What you heard here today are some of the solutions that we can all be invested in. So I want to remind you as we close to be bold, be sincere, be the change. Make sure you step out there, get your PEAR pledge in, scan the QR codes on the cards in front of you so that you can find your way to be a part of the solution and actually build the equitable approaches and strategies, policies, and practices that we need to turn all of this around for all of the Washingtonians and make sure that we are bringing in belonging and also that we are providing equity and justice for all. Thanks so much, y'all. Lunch is now provided. Thank you.